Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you the best early game build in Code Vein 2. This will actually be a few different builds here to get the most out of all the great weapons. Now I just want to mention that hammers, which usually were not that great in the very first game, are actually very viable here because they have a really fun and powerful moveset here with a great jump attack, and you also get a cool combo from the heavy attack here. So this is one weapon that I would recommend using due to its increased power with this crazy moveset that you get from it. But I'll also show off a build for the rune swords because I think that these are extremely fun and great for bosses that are a little bit more challenging because you can just stick these weapons on the boss and they'll automatically attack them. And as well as some builds for two-handed and one-handed swords. Now, I think it's first best to explain how the stats and everything work in this game because this comes down to our blood code, and it's a little bit confusing if you haven't played these games before. Now, with our blood codes, this is kind of like the class or the build that we're going to be focusing on here, and you're going to see as we go through the different ones here, they have different stats on the right-hand side of the screen. For example, this one here, which has high scaling in strength and mind, is one that works very well for some of the heavier weapons in the game, whereas things like the blue bloodline here is higher in its mind stat. So obviously you're going to match these up depending on the weapon that you're going to use, but honestly look around for these and try to upgrade them as quickly as possible. You may have to go back and talk to Lou whenever you had a mistle there to be able to upgrade them, but I found that the Jose one worked very well here for strength-based builds, and you'll get this as part of the main story. You can also grab the Lavinia one here as part of the main story here. And what's great about this is it has a high amount of Ichor with 22 on this one currently. This means that we can cast more spells, so you're not bound to only using a few. And you're going to see that ring at the very bottom of the screen there that depletes. That's kind of empowering our skills. So for most builds, Lavinia is going to be fine in the early game, and Jose will be a little bit better once you unlock it for the heavier weapons. But you can also see the traits down at the bottom. So this one comes with the Charge Drain attack power up, stamina recovery speed up, and Ichor gain from weapon attacks, but Ichor overflow deals recoil damage. So you got to be mindful of some of these here whenever you're going with them, and this counts as the overburden. So depending on the weapons that you're using, you're going to see this here. If we're to go with the rune blades on this weapon, you see underneath the willpower here that we don't have enough stats for this to work properly. Whenever you get this overburden here, you're going to deal less damage. However, whenever you go back to the bloodline here, this is how you get that overburden effect there. So you can see overburden effect, you'll get that effect there. The mind margin 10 and strength mind margin 8 will give you these effects. And this also will impact your dodge effectiveness as well. So if you get that below what it is there, you're actually going to get a better dodge. So for example, the rune blades is better to go with Lavinia there, as we're going to be able to have the willpower to slot it. But if you wanted to use one of the heavier weapons like the Formae hammer mjolnir here, which I'll show you where to get in just one moment, you're going to spec into the higher strength version. And I highly recommend going and grabbing the mjolnir here. So this is where you're going to be starting off from. You're going to come over left and then go down south here. And Jadwiga's minion here is going to be the one that sells it to you. And highly recommend grabbing this. It's so good. And this hammer actually scales up both strength and dexterity here with the C scaling, and it'll increase later on. And it'll put a burden of 10 on your strength and 6 dexterity. With this one here having a 21 burden, this lets us quick dodge, which is hilarious to get a quick dodge off with a hammer, but it's just, this works out very well. And with the Formas, this has actually a good capacity here to be able to allow different skills, which I went with the backdraft, which is the one that comes naturally on this, which does a large shockwave, which is great because it actually hits in a large area of effect and it's a bit of mobility. I also put the flame weapon on here to add some additional fire damage. Conservation, which is part of this, makes it so that you reduce the stamina cost whenever you're attacking, and if you take damage, this gets reset. And then Venomous Shot, which is a magic attack that gives us some range with this, because the hammer is close range, but I found that this 4 worked well. Now, if we're going with the rune blades, the Stalking Saber, which comes naturally on this here, which you get this from the runes early in the game on Magmel Island. Stalking Saber will let you attack bosses, and you can just focus on dodging. I also like the Whirling Shredder, similar effect with a bit higher damage in my experience, but it's a little bit harder to land your shots than the Stalking Saber, which will actually follow the enemy when you hit them with it. Adrenaline's is also a nice one to increase our attack power, and the Air Blast, which gives us a bit of stagger damage, which I think is nice on a weapon that doesn't have that much with the rune blades here. But these are the 2 that I'd recommend. If you got the early access greatsword, this is obviously a very powerful one to go with here. I would just recommend leaving these skills on it, which are really good. The Zweihander is great as well, and this one has a burden of 10 on strength as well, so it makes great for this setup, because again, you're going to get that quick dodge. But in my honest opinion, the Mjolnir Hammer or the Ancient Hunter's Rune Blades are 2 of the best, depending on the boss you're going against. This hammer did get a really fast boost to its ability to deal damage quickly, where in Code Vein, these are slow and sluggish, and the Rune Blades are just good in general if you have to dodge often against the boss. Now for our Bequeathed Formae here, Between the longbow and the battle axe here, the battle axe is a little bit better, and I find that this works well if you're going with the rune blades, as it gives you a heavier attack. It depends on the boss that you're going up against. If you're struggling, it might be worth swapping around, but the battle axe here gets good scaling in the strength, dexterity, and mind here, which are stats that we all have with this setup. I like the longbow though. There's a few times where it can be useful, though bosses are pretty quick to aggro in this game, so I just didn't find it to be good. You get a couple shots off, but it is a fun weapon, just not as powerful as I found the axe to be, which you can see there does quite a bit of damage. And the big thing is you can charge this up and it does a bit of an area of effect afterwards with that temporal force field. And it'll build up slow on the enemy and break through shields. So this is a really good one, and you can see it actually does some pretty solid damage. This comes with a 5 Ichor consumption. Now for the defensive shield choices here, this honestly, I would recommend just watching your stats and moving them around as you need them. Unless you really like using the shield, I found them to be a bit underwhelming, especially against certain bosses where dodging just seems to be the clear option. I would recommend avoiding the shield of stupor, as it has a very high willpower cost, which you're likely not going to be able to cover in the early game. But honestly, the cloud shield with the low damage or low requirements is nice. The bleeding shield is kind of cool too, because it does give you a bit of a physical damage nullification. However, it's not that large, so you could just go with really whatever works best. I'm just rolling with the bleeding shield. However, if you do like parrying, the Mutinous Bracer is the best choice for that in the early game, but it's kind of personal preference. And now for our jail, I love the bat. The bat's great. It gives you a ranged attack, which if you pair this with the rune blades, you can just attack and get both your attacks off and then just focus on dodging. Well, it's going to continually keep damaging the boss. I think this is the best. It gives you a bit of a jump back too, which I think is really nice. The Ogre I don't love. I think the Reaper is probably the true best one. I just personally really enjoy the bats. The Reaper gives you a bit of a parry type attack here, and while it's quite powerful, I just don't like using it alongside the axe and the hammer. I just have there's so many heavy weapons with a long charge up, so I prefer having a bit more mobility. The Ivy is also a nice choice too, and the Stinger and Ogre are just meh. I didn't find them to be as effective as these three here in the early game, but bats is quite solid. Again, just being mindful of your burden here, because some of them may push you over the edge. Like for example here, I got the bat, but if I were to put on the Reaper, I go from having a quick dodge to having a slow dodge, which is obviously if you want to have the faster one. And for boosters, honestly, just whatever is possible at the current moment. I only have a couple here. And for quick items, if you're going to put a couple on, I would recommend putting on the Ichor supplement here, which will give you more Ichor back, which I think is nice if you want to keep spamming spells. And there's a bunch of other ones you can find in the early game, but honestly, I'd save them for the big boss fights. So overall, here is what the stats look like for this particular build. I found the Jose's Bloodline just works the best here with giving us the stats that we need for the weapons that we want to be using. And then with this setup here, I think that the being able to flame up our weapon, have a ranged attack, and a very powerful attack. You honestly, with the hammer, you can just focus on the main moveset. It's fun and it's strong. We got that quick dodge, high damage. Overall, I think this build is one of the strongest in Code Vein 2. And what's great about the hammer is you have a jumping attack too, which is pretty fun. So you can jump up in the air and go wham. It is a little bit harder to land. You have to be a little closer than you'd think, but it even has just that regular light attack jump. So honestly, the hammer moveset's pretty crazy. And of course, we got our weapon skill here, which is a huge bonk. You got to be careful with landing it though, because yeah, you don't have the super armor through it, but it hits in a huge area of effect. And then you get that jump backwards. But I love the heavy attack combo on this thing. It's super sweet going just around with the hammer bonk. It was too quick. We took him out. The hammer's damage is insane. I honestly think this weapon's a little bit too overpowered just due to how large and arcing sweeps the large arcing sweeps it does, but also just the insane amount of damage that it does here. And it's a fun weapon. That's the thing about it. So yeah, that is one of the most powerful builds in the early game of Code Vein 2. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Hit the subscribe button below if you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more Code Vein 2 content.